Is the Great Sphinx thousands of years older than it is accepted by modern Egyptology? Is there a hidden hall of records under his right paw in which the hidden records of before the Great Flood? All of that will be covered in this video. My name is Aleksander, and in this video we shall see the alternative vision of the Great Sphinx and all of the alternative theories concerning not only the age of the Great Sphinx but also the hidden hall of records under his right paws, its connection to the Great Flood, and even its appearance as not the leonine and half-human figure, but actually another which is connected even to the Olmecs of the Central America. Let's start with how the mainstream Egyptology views the Great Sphinx, and actually there are many of theories even within the mainstream Egyptology, but the most accepted and the most dogmatic one is that the Great Sphinx was built by the pharaoh Khafre, who is also the builder of the second pyramid of Giza, the pyramid of Khafre. And according to this theory, the Great Sphinx most probably represent the Khafre himself. But actually, Frank Domingo, who was a detective of the New York Police Department and who specializes in recognizing faces of the murderers and other criminals, actually disproved this theory and proved it to be false. And according to him, the face of the Great Sphinx does not represent the Khafre, who is known from several small figurines. So actually, as we see, this theory may be wrong. And also, according to this theory, first the pyramid of Khafre was built, then there was the pavement to the Great Sphinx, and at the end the Great Sphinx was built. But actually it is also wrong, because for instance the pavement which connects the pyramid of Khafre and the Great Sphinx is mostly built out of the blocks which were excavated during the building of the Sphinx, because the Sphinx is within the small enclosure and it is a little bit below underground, and these blocks which were excavated during the sculpting of the Great Sphinx were later used to build this pavement which connects the pyramid of Khafre with the Great Sphinx. So as we see, the assertion of the Egyptologists that the Sphinx was the latest building of the pharaoh Khafre and that the pyramid was the first and then there was this pavement is wrong, because most probably first was the Sphinx. And actually, when it comes to the dating itself, the mainstream Egyptology of course dated to the reign of Khafre, so about 2550 BC, 2550 BC, but actually it may be thousands of years older, because for instance, if it was built before the pyramids, and if the pyramids, as I was mentioning in my many other videos, may be connected to the Orion constellation, as it looked like not during the reigns of the pharaohs that were supposed to build it, but actually to the date of 10,500 BC, according to Robert Bauval, who actually mentions that the alignment of the pyramids is correlated with the alignment of the three stars of the belt of Orion, which looked like that not during the reign of the pharaohs, but actually 10,500 BC. It is also connected to the Edgar Cayce Prophecies, which also, as we'll see later, were telling us that under the right paw of the Sphinx there is the hidden hall of records. But when it comes to the dating, Cayce mentioned that the pyramids and Sphinx were built actually between 10,000 490 BC to 10,390 BC, and as I mentioned in my other videos, it may be connected to the Great Flood and the Hermetic tradition, and also the Arab chroniclers who tell us that the pyramids of Giza and Sphinx were built before the Great Flood, which may be the event of the end of the last ice age, when there was the sudden meltwater of the glaciers all over the world and sudden inundations of the lands all over the planet. So this end of the last ice age occurred between 10,500 BC and 9,500 BC, and as we see, it connects not only the building of the pyramids before the Great Flood, but also the sinking of Atlantis, which according to Greek philosopher Plato in his two dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias, occurred during about 9600 BC. So as we see, this end of the last ice age and this Great Flood is connected with the pyramids and the Sphinx, and also with the sinking of Atlantis. And so if the pyramids were maybe built about 10,500 BC, so the Great Sphinx may be even older, and actually we've got evidence that it may be, and that it may be connected with this global flood, because geologist Robert Schacht in the 1990s found out that the erosion around the Sphinx, within this enclosure of the Sphinx, may be dated to thousands of years before the supposed build of the Great Sphinx by the pharaoh Khafre. Because according to Schacht, this erosion was caused by water, and this erosion must be dated to between 11,000 to 7,000 years BC. So as we see, it also connects the dots of the much older pyramids and much older Sphinx, and also the theory that it may be before the flood, which later connects it with the hidden hall of records, which contain the pre-Diluvian records of the very ancient past. So as we see, the Great Sphinx, because of this erosion and also of its connection to the pyramids of Giza which surrounds it, may be thousands of years older than the Egyptologists tell us. And it is also interesting because according to a keeper of knowledge, of the local knowledge of Egypt, Hakim, who is mentioned in many books, for example in the books of Stephen Asmela, mentions that according to the esoteric tradition of the ancient Egyptians, the Great Sphinx was built even further back in times, during about 52,000 years BC. So as we see, it may be even older than that, which may be logical because as we see, the pyramids of Giza are not that eroded, and the Sphinx is much more eroded than the pyramids, so the Sphinx may be much older than the pyramids. But when it comes to this epoch of 10,500 BC mentioned previously, also it is interesting to know that the Great Sphinx may be correlated to the zodiacal epoch era of Leo, because we know there are 12 zodiac signs, and these zodiac signs are connected to the astronomical phenomenon of the precession of the equinoxes, which may be seen on this picture and which is connected to an extra axis of our planet which orbits, which this circle above our planet is actually lasts for 25,920 years. And when we divide 25,920 years, it turns out that every zodiac sign, if we divide it by the 12 zodiac sign, every zodiac sign it lasts for 2,160 years. And when we calculate the age of the zodiacal epoch of Leo, it actually occurred during 12,000 to 10,000 BC, between those dates, because we don't know the very precise dates. So as we see, it may be further evidence and could be further backed up, and actually this theory of the older pyramids connected to this date of 10,500 BC could be further connected with the Sphinx and the age of Leo between 12,000 and 10,000 years BC. When it comes to the face of the Sphinx itself, actually according to the modern Egyptologists, it is the representation of the pharaoh, mainly the pharaoh Khafre. But actually, as I mentioned at the beginning, it doesn't look like that. And according to several theories, it may represent, for example, the ancient Egyptian god of Anubis shown here, or even the black African woman, which may be connected to the giant heads of the Olmecs of the Central America, which are very similar to the face and to the entire head of the Great Sphinx. And here we've got actually the connection of the ancient Egypt and ancient Central America, and it can be seen that maybe those two cultures were connected, and in the very distant past our ancient ancestors traveled from Egypt to Central America, or maybe vice versa. So as we see, it further connects the dots that our ancient ancestors were more advanced and that our very distant history turned out to be very different than it is shown by modern historians, archaeologists and Egyptologists. So now at the end, the most interesting part, the hidden Hall of Records. So the Hall of Records was first mentioned by Edgar Cayce, who was called the sleeping prophet and who made very accurate prophecies about near future. And for example, he prophesied that between 1968 and 1961 there would be found the remains of the lost land of Atlantis, which I mentioned previously. And actually, during these 2 years in which he prophesied the found of Atlantis, there was found the Bimini Road, which is nearby Bahamas, and which is the underwater megalithic structure, which may be really the remnants of Atlantis because it looks like it was man-made. And actually, Edgar Cayce also prophesied this building of the pyramids and Sphinx being much older, but also he prophesied that under the right paw there is this hidden Hall of Records, which was interestingly also mentioned by other out-of-body travelers, so psychic travelers with the psychic powers who traveled out of the body, who traveled mentally to very distant location, and for example they validated that there is some hidden chamber under the right paw of the Sphinx. This out-of-body traveling, also called the distant viewing, was mentioned many times and was investigated by, for example, the Americans and by the USSR during the Cold War. And actually the out-of-body travelers and those distant viewers made very accurate graphics of the, for example, military facilities which were very hidden. So actually, as we see, there is some truth to those out-of-body experiences of traveling to distant locations, and if you're interested in that topic you can mention it in the comment below, so I will do more materials about it. So as we see, there really might be some hidden chamber under the right paw of the Sphinx, which according to Cayce contains the pre-Diluvian knowledge, which is also connected to the previously mentioned Hermetic and Arabic tradition, according to which the Giza Plateau was the place where the knowledge of the before the flood was hidden from the flood, and which function as the place of preservation of the pre-Diluvian knowledge and also artifacts, because according to Hermetic tradition and Arab chroniclers, the god of wisdom Thoth actually prophesied the incoming flood to occur and actually build the pyramids of Giza and maybe the Great Sphinx, but as we've seen, most probably the Sphinx is older, in order to preserve the knowledge of before the flood. So as we see beneath the right paw of the Sphinx, there really could be a hidden Hall of Records. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, don't forget to check out my channel in order to get much more information concerning the alternative history of many other monuments and humanity altogether. Also, don't remember to subscribe to my channel and like this video, and also to share it in order for more people to get acquainted with all of those information. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and to the next video. Goodbye.